My name is Evelyn Carter, and I am 72 years old. And the night everything fell apart, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a calculator that wouldn't stop blinking red at me. Not because it was broken, but because I was. The number was impossible. No matter how I added or rearranged it, the truth stared back at me. I was $48,672 in debt. A number that didn't match my life. A number that felt like a cliff edge, one wrong step from losing everything. A number I still don't fully understand how I reached. Not until later, when the truth finally surfaced. And if you're over 60, you know this fear. That cold, shameful, choking fear of bills coming faster than your breath. But please stay with me. I swear I didn't just survive this. I found a way out so strange and unexpected that I almost didn't believe it myself. And anyone our age can use it. Just don't leave yet. Because it didn't start with disaster. It started with a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Normal days don't warn you. I woke up that morning to the soft chirping of birds on my windowsill, sunlight warming the blanket around my shoulders. My knees ached. Rain was coming, and I shuffled toward the kitchen, the smell of day-old coffee still lingering in the pot. I poured myself a cup anyway. Habit is a powerful thing at my age. I kept my favorite porcelain mug with the blue forget-me-nots by the sink. That mug has survived 3 moves, 2 grandkids, and 1 marriage falling apart. Don't ask me why. Some things stick when nothing else does. The day was ordinary, comforting even. And yet, somewhere inside that comfort, something dark was already growing. A shadow I didn't see. Not yet. But there was one small moment. A tiny detail that should have warned me everything was about to change. The envelope I didn't open. I found it on my doormat around noon. A crisp white envelope with bold black letters. Final notice. I remember freezing for a heartbeat. Not because I knew what it was. I didn't. But because the word final hit me like a whisper of danger. Still, I placed it on the coffee table, right between my remote and an old Reader's Digest. I told myself I'd open it later. You know that lie we tell ourselves. Later. When I feel stronger. When I'm not so tired. But later never comes on its own. It waits like a trap. And I walked right into it. Because the envelope wasn't from some credit card I forgot. It wasn't from a medical bill. It was worse. It was a signal that something brutal was about to surface. The debt that didn't make sense. That night, I finally opened the envelope. A single sheet of paper slid out, and in the center, printed in cold, unemotional numbers, past due balance $12,884. Immediate payment required. I blinked. Read it again. 12,000? Past due? On what? My breath grew shallow. My fingers tingled. Something inside me cracked like thin ice. I grabbed my files from the drawer. Old tax forms, receipts, insurance statements, flipping through them so fast they scattered onto the floor. The living room turned into a sea of paper. Nothing made sense. Then, buried between 2 electric bills, I found the second shock. A credit line I didn't remember opening. A signature that looked like mine, but wasn't. 3 withdrawals I never made. I whispered into the empty room, "This can't be real." But it was. And it was only the beginning. Because within the next 48 hours, 3 more letters arrived. 3 different banks. 3 different debts. I felt something inside my chest tighten to the point of pain. If you've ever been crushed under bills, really crushed, you know that dizzy, disoriented feeling. The one where you ask yourself, how did this happen? Am I losing my mind? But the truth was far stranger. and far more dangerous. The week, everything drowned me. The next days were a blur of fear and phone calls. One bank rep said politely, "Ma'am, you miss payments for 8 months." Another said coldly, "Your credit score has fallen by 140 points." Another had the nerve to suggest you should stay more organized at your age. At my age. Funny how fast the world decides we're fragile or foolish the moment we pass 60. By Friday, just 5 days after opening that first envelope, the reality hit. I wasn't $12,000 in debt. I wasn't $20,000 in debt. I was almost $50,000 in debt. Most of it not even mine. Some of it partially mine. Some of it, well, I wasn't sure anymore. It felt like someone had taken my life and scribbled over it in permanent ink. But the worst moment wasn't the number. It was when I realized I couldn't afford my heart medication that month. I remember holding the bottle, shaking, whispering, "I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out." But I didn't know how. Not yet. Though someone would appear soon in the most unexpected way. The humiliation I never saw coming. On Saturday morning, I went to my local bank branch. The rain was tapping against the windshield as I sat in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A young woman, couldn't have been older than 26, looked at my paperwork and raised her eyebrows. "Ma'am, these are high-risk credit lines. You shouldn't have opened this many at your age." At my age again. The word stung more than the debt. "I didn't open them," I said quietly. She smiled the way people smile when they think they're right. "Well, the signatures match." "They're not mine." "Well, with age, handwriting can get." I slammed my palm on the desk so hard the pen jumped. "They're not mine." People turned. I felt my face burn with humiliation. I lowered my head. She cleared her throat, suddenly uncomfortable. "Well, you can file a dispute, but approval isn't guaranteed. And these amounts," she exhaled sharply, "it's highly unusual for seniors." Seniors. Like I was a lost cause with a heartbeat. I left the bank shaking so badly, I had to sit in the car for 10 minutes before driving home. And as I sat there, rainwater streaking down the windshield in crooked lines, I whispered, "What am I supposed to do?" But no answer came. Not then, though someone would appear soon, in the most unexpected way. The stranger who knew something I didn't. 2 days later, I was standing in the line at the grocery store, clutching a carton of milk and a bag of apples, hoping my card wouldn't bounce. The man behind me, gray beard, old denim jacket, probably mid-70s, noticed my overdue notices sticking out from my purse. He didn't stare. He didn't judge. He just leaned slightly and said quietly, "You're drowning in those too?" I blinked, embarrassed. "Is it that obvious?" He chuckled softly. "I've seen that look before. Had it myself. You got hit with senior rollover crediting, didn't you?" I frowned. "With what?" He nodded, as if confirming something to himself. That's what I thought. They don't warn people our age about it, but you absolutely can fight it." A spark lit inside me. Small, but warm. I whispered, "How?" But right then, the cashier called, "Ma'am, next." And when I turned back to the man, he was gone. Just gone. Like smoke dissolving into the air. But he'd left me one thing, a phrase I didn't understand at the time. Senior rollover crediting. And that phrase, that tiny clue, would become the key to everything. The key to the solution nobody told me. The key that turned my story from disaster to survival. But what happened next, that was the hardest part of all. Because before I could fight the debt, I had to face a truth I'd spent years avoiding.
I stood there at the grocery checkout with the man's words echoing in my head. Senior rollover crediting. A phrase so strange, so out of place, it felt like a secret someone wasn't supposed to say out loud. And yet, it wouldn't leave me. Even as I walked to my car, even as I slammed the door shut and let the milk carton roll onto the passenger seat, I kept whispering it. Senior rollover crediting. It felt like the first breadcrumb on a path I didn't even know existed. And something deep inside me, something tired, scared, but stubborn, refused to let it go. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach and a thought I couldn't ignore. What if he knew something? What if this is the one thread that could pull me out of this nightmare? But pulling on that thread turned out to be harder than I ever expected, and more painful. The truth I didn't want to face. I started by Googling the phrase. Nothing. Just articles about senior loans, debt limits, retirement credit adjustments, but nothing called rollover crediting. So then I tried calling the banks again. 3 of them. 3 different hold lines playing the same tinny piano music. Each rep gave me the same answer. Ma'am, we don't have anything by that name. It doesn't ring a bell. Are you sure you're remembering the term correctly? Remembering? At 72, people assume your memory is the problem, not their ignorance. But I knew what I heard. And just as I was about to give up, the 4th rep, a man whose voice sounded older than the others, paused and said, "Where did you hear that?" My breath caught. Is it real? Another pause. It's not something we're allowed to advertise. My pulse spiked. But it exists? I didn't say that, ma'am. I said, "No, please." My voice cracked. I'm drowning. I'm 72 years old and I'm about to lose my home. If there's something I should know, tell me. He exhaled slowly, like someone about to break a rule. Fine, but listen carefully and don't say I told you. I gripped the phone with both hands. Senior rollover crediting, he whispered, is a federal side debt compression review for people over 65, but it's not automatic. You have to call the office directly. Banks can't submit it. They're not incentivized to. Incentivized? I echoed, confused. They get paid from interest, ma'am. Why would they help wipe it away? I felt the air shift around me, like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through. I whispered, "How do I reach them?" He lowered his voice even more. "You didn't hear this from me, but the number is 1. And then the line clicked, hard, disconnected. I stared at the phone, heart pounding. Had he hung up? Was it a glitch? Or had someone listening cut the call? I didn't know. But now I had half a number scribbled on a sticky note and a fire inside me I couldn't put out. Searching in the dark. For hours, I called every federal helpline I could find. Medicare, Social Security, financial protection offices, identity theft divisions. Nothing. But every time I said rollover crediting, someone went quiet. Just for half a second, as if the phrase meant something, but something they weren't allowed to acknowledge. By 7 p.m., my head was pounding. Papers were scattered all over my dining room table again. Bills, notices, rejected disputes. I pressed my palms to my eyes and whispered, "I can't do this anymore." And then, just as exhaustion almost swallowed me, I saw something. On the corner of a credit statement so small I'd missed it before, Senior Adjustment Review. See code SRC. My fingers trembled as I lifted the page closer. SRC. Like senior rollover crediting. It wasn't a random phrase. It wasn't nonsense. It was real, hidden in fine print so tiny my bifocals barely caught it. My heart hammered. And then I noticed something else. A phone number, not for the bank, not for collections, but a small, almost hidden line labeled Federal Debt Resolution Liaison, Restricted Access. My breath hitched. This was it. The number the grocery store stranger was hinting at, the number the rep wasn't allowed to fully give me. With shaking hands, I dialed. 1 ring, 2, 3. I whispered, "Please, please let someone answer." Federal Rollover and Senior Credit Review Office, a woman said calmly. I burst into tears. The call that saved me. The woman on the line had a steady, patient voice. She sounded older, maybe my age or older. "This line is confidential," she said. "Tell me everything." And for the first time since the nightmare began, I told my story without holding back. The fake credit lines, the overdue notices, the dropped credit score, the humiliation, the confusion, the fear I tried to swallow every morning like a vitamin. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then, "Mrs. Carter, you qualify." "For what?" I asked. "For SRC. Senior Rollover Crediting." I covered my mouth with both hands, tears spilled between my fingers. How does it work?" I whispered. Her answer stunned me. "You won't be paying the full $48,672, not even close." My breath caught. "In cases like yours, fraudulent lines, predatory interest stacking, and unauthorized credit expansions can be compressed into a single review. After validation, your debt may be reduced by 60 to 90%. I closed my eyes. My whole body trembled. 90, I whispered, barely able to form the words.
"It's possible," she said gently. "And even if not, you are still eligible for a federal senior consolidation bracket. You will not lose your home." I broke. I sobbed in a way I hadn't sobbed since my husband's funeral. My shoulders shook. My breath stuttered. And she didn't rush me. She didn't talk over me. She just waited, letting me breathe through years' worth of fear. Then she said, "Evelyn, we're going to fix this. Together." The process. The hardest part. The next 3 hours were a marathon. Document scans, identity confirmations, verification audits, cross-checking fraudulent lines, listing every debt, every fee, every interest spike I'd been crushed under. They weren't judging me. They weren't dismissing me. They weren't blaming my age. They were doing something I hadn't felt from anyone else. Helping. Halfway through, the woman paused. "We found something," she said quietly. My stomach twisted. "What?" "2 of your credit lines were attached to a deceased spouse's dormant account. That means those debts cannot be assigned to you." I gasped. My husband had passed 8 years ago, and someone, some system, some algorithm, some predatory loophole chaser had tried to anchor new debts to his name and then fold them into mine. I felt sick. But also, for the first time, vindicated. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't careless. I wasn't failing. I was being exploited. And now someone finally saw it. The weight. She submitted my case for review. 3 days, maybe 4, but stay reachable. Those were the longest days of my life. Every morning, I stared at the phone. Every night, I slept with the light on. I kept repeating in my head, please, please let this be real. Then, on the 4th day, I received an email with the subject line, SRC Review Decision. My hand shook so badly I could barely tap the screen. The letter opened slowly. Then the number appeared. Final adjusted debt. $4,321. I gasped so hard I choked on air. From $48,672 down to $4,321. I pressed the phone to my chest and sobbed again, but not from fear this time. From relief, from gratitude, from survival. I whispered, thank you, over and over as if the universe itself had handed me oxygen. And when I called the liaison, the same woman with the steady voice, she said softly, I told you, Evelyn, seniors aren't helpless. We're just hidden from the right doors. The final turn. With the debt compressed, I set up a manageable payment plan, something I could actually breathe under. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up in panic. The fog lifted. My home felt like mine again. My days felt livable again. And my hope, that fragile, flickering thing, began to grow back. One warm evening, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat on my porch, watching the sky turn gold and pink. I felt whole again. Then I whispered into the quiet, if I made it through this, others can too. And I decided right then that I would tell my story loudly, openly, without shame. Because so many people my age suffer in silence. But silence doesn't save us. Truth does. And if my truth saves even one person, then everything I went through, every tear, every bill, every sleepless night was worth it. Final message from one senior to another. If you're watching this, if debt is crushing you, if the letters keep coming, if the phone calls make your heart race, if you feel ashamed or scared or alone, please hear me. You are not failing. You are not irresponsible. You are not broken. The system is complicated. The paperwork is brutal. And seniors are targeted more than anyone. But there are solutions. There are people who can help. And you are not too old to fight for your life. You are not alone. Not anymore. If you've lived through something like this, if you're fighting right now, if you're trying to breathe under the weight of bills and shame, tell your story. Share your voice. We're stronger together. And I'm with you.